This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. We come to you today with short business episodes, short private equity episodes, interviews with business and private equity leaders, and a lot more. Today's discussion is pitch decks and financial projections. And I'm just going to talk about a number of different thoughts that I have when I look at pitch decks and how I assess them and what I think as we look at funding or investing and so forth. The first one I always have when I look at a pitch deck is does it have traction? Is it delusional? Does it feel centered and grounded? So, for example, do the potential revenue projections make some sense to me? Do the cost projections make sense to me? Or do they seem like they're very much sort of pie in the sky based on no sense of real reality? So to go along with that is, how did the author come up with the projections on sales? Is there some experience with it? Are they grounded in some true initial numbers that give them some sense of it? Or are they really sort of just, made up and conjectured and no real clarity as to where they come from and how they'll get there? When I see big numbers, I often, especially on the revenue side, I often think, is there some grounding and clarity in it? Is there something that makes sense and how they get from point A to point B? And so that's sort of my first sort of looking at financial projections. And I view the financial projections is very, very important. But to go with those is how the author, the writer, the entrepreneur got there, and do they make sense to me? The story that they're telling is how they're getting from point A to point B. The second thought we have when we talk about this is sort of the use of funds. Where's the capital going? Where are costs going? Where's the money going? Is there great clarity about it? And does that clarity make sense to me? Are they hiring people? Where are those salaries going? Do the salaries make sense? Can they hire the right people? Do they have the talent to do so? And a lot more. The other thing I see when I see businesses, particularly startup businesses that have run rates, are those run rates, are we constantly moving the goalpost, or is the entrepreneur disciplined enough to keep that run rate relatively focused and relatively stable so we could actually get revenues to catch up to that run rate in cost and what they're using the cash for? And again, is there great clarity on the cost? Another thing I think about often is when the business is coming to me or an investor or someone like me, what is the valuation and how are they coming up with it? When I see a valuation that is, for example, I saw one the other day, the valuation said $65 million, but they've literally got almost no revenues. I'm always, my very initial thought, first thought and second thought and third thought is I'm generally throwing the deck out, absent some compelling reason not to throw it out. But my first thought is I'm throwing that out if I get a valuation that to me makes no sense. It's not based in reality. And this happened to me the other day. I got a pitch deck that asked for a pre-market valuation, pre-money valuation, funding valuation of $65 million on essentially a business that has really almost no revenues and sales. That just to me leads me to do one thing, to take it off my plate of things to worry about and think about. The next thing I look at and think about is, and it goes back to something earlier we said on use of capital, use of cash. So it's the business of great clarity of those needs. And probably the last thing I think about when I look at pitch decks is, does the entrepreneur really know their business and the business they're in and what they have to do to move the different levers for revenues versus cost and so forth, and how to grow sales, how to grow revenues? Again, those are our thoughts. And this really is not entirely on pitch decks in total, but what I really want to know is, are the numbers grounded in reality? Does the person really know their business? Do they know where the money's going? Is there a valuation that makes sense? And a lot more makes sense to me from a smell test perspective. Again, thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Always looking for great topics and guests. 773-766-5322. Thank you very much for listening.